Today, I think I am actually going to, and one couldn't see how much I do not actually watch these things very much. Either the genre, neo-noir, or this specific franchise, which apparently is sort of like Doctor Who for the neo-noir genre or something, except they do films, not entire series. Yeah, I'm referring to Poirot again. It happened to be the first one I commented on, completely coincidentally, but that happened to be the first one I watched after. And but yeah, I do not really enjoy them too much or anything. I can say I haven't really done much with seen any others aside from that. And I think that's the only one I ever watched as well. But I'm going to watch the second one, because why not? It's kind of a continues the thing with the cycle of genres as well. So, instead of watching horror movies constantly, and this sort of has elements, doesn't it? Neo-noir usually has, these specific elements that horror movies would also have. But horror movies, I think, focus on death and such. Neo-noir does have that. It's an element, but it doesn't focus on it too much. It's just a device. It, you know, it's more a detective story, I suppose, than an obsession about. Yeah, horror movies are very much obsessed, and many of them seem to think that God is all. If this follows the same formula as the last one I watched, well, there'll be a single solitary murder, and people try to solve it. But seriously, I hope it will be better than the one from last time. I mean, I don't know what the hell it was. It was the stupidest, honestly, the stupidest ending, right? It really was. I mean, it's been a couple of months or such, and I still think it's a very stupid ending. So anyway, yeah, this is called Evil under the Sun, whatever the version. So yeah, I'll begin watching it, I suppose. Possibly. Well, at least it has some nice pictures at the beginning. Yeah, I've always thought that old posters for old films were sort of interesting, nice. I mean, they usually sort of cartoons, aren't they? Static cartoons, that is. But they don't really go much further than the poster usually. They don't. Most movies do not usually have more pictures, and if you're going to have credits, you might as well have cartoons, right? It's a nice distraction from constant credits. Also, pretty much the only actor I recognized from the credits list is Maggie Smith. Now, um, I really only know her as an old lady. I mean, I've only mostly watched recent movies she's in, so it's going to be a bit strange watching her from 40 years ago. Very strange indeed. Okay, so The beginning is strange. I mean, yeah, so far voice tools it, and the beginning is strange. Right. At least the other Corona I watched can be good compared this one to many others. Usually for the same effort, I think. Reincarnating different vectors and such. But yeah, yeah, the beginning is kind of strange. So I don't know why they decided to just have someone going for these patients and record the murder, and then they show the person murder, and then not say anything about it at all for the next, 15 minutes at least. So far, probably much more. At least they say more about history of the area than they do about anything to do with the movie. It's a strange decision. Yeah, with regards to the history of the area, I don't know, I was kind of curious about whether this would existed, as they keep saying Turania. I don't think Turania exists, but there is a Turanian sea, which is spelled slightly different in the way it's spelled, and apparently it's identified with modern day Africa, which is interesting. So, yeah. But, everything else is fiction, anyone tries to search for this. It's Victor Crosser from Mafujiba and 9/11 difficulty. Yeah, I just found references, so you know the fact that the registered person was no, contest. I think it was on that. And Mafujiba sounds like something it's not yeah, no, I think they just combined the words or something. Yeah, metal is, the code is currently at all the province as well. So I don't know why they did this. I'm not sure. The 11 months we got to do with it. I don't know if something happened there. I don't know why they do this, honestly. Like, we will use real history and then don't use history. Exactly. Why come up with stuff and then call a fictional battle barbarian? I mean, I just never have enough of that. Unless it's something to do with the movie as I go along and I'll find out. But none of it sense to have any of this in it. That is for sure. And yeah, one thing is there's a battle crossover and that's in 30 later on. So, I'm going to have anything to talk because it's just strange that they do. I don't know the any history in the other further. It was very self-contained, so I wanted to even tell a weird stupid story in the best of times. But and he always seems to travel somewhere, doesn't he? Before he actually on his location and inevitably ends up in some sort of situation. Not sure what situation could end up in though, considering yeah, the person has already been killed and someone else has been. Well, this is why I don't really like this kind of movies so much. So it's very procedural in a way. Most movies, I suppose, have these tropes But this kind of even more so. You know, they have these specific things that happen. I mean, if you know, I guess they could direct it in a way. They could the story could turn out to be a bit disjointed, like it seemed like it could be now. With the you know, the report at the beginning and then no mention of it. It's disjointed. Other than that, though, it should still be the same. So it's either mediocre or slightly worse. Usually. So this is why I don't think I've watched another Neo Noir since. Could this could this really be called Neo Noir? Because it's not exactly. I don't know. I mean, with regards to the title, I guess, you know, to the name, Noir, reminds me of, well, obviously it's French for black, isn't it, as far as I know. And so it sort of reminds me of, you know, the black and white films on my mind. You know, noir films are always black and white, like those. And this is, I think this is Technicolor. Looks like it, at least. Vibrant sort of colors, I don't know. But, I suppose either way, you know, noir is generally some sort of detective story. Can't really say it's not, I suppose, then. I don't think I can find anything that are related to any of the history that's been said here at all. This guy just comes out of nowhere. This is a funny though, how he's like, yeah, they fire a cannon every day at noon, but the only victory they ever had. Well, they'd be firing a lot of cannons now if they have any more than that. I mean, they had like, I mean, they only need, I guess, 24 victories in all of history to fire a cannon every hour. I mean, then I suppose they could do it about half an hour or something. And then, yeah, there are some good comebacks in a way with this franchise. You know, Poirot responded saying one success too many. Yeah, I guess there was a slight bit of comedy in the movie as well, but uh, the whole storyline is just bizarre for the other one. I don't know if this one is any more logical, I don't know if it ends any more sensibly either. We'll see. So I realized there were noise problems without there actually being noise. That is, it has something to do with the way the wire is laying out as such. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure still, but hopefully for now, until I find out what exactly it is, I can have some sort of feedback mechanism, possibly. I'm not sure. The microphones are seriously sensitive and annoying, and sensitive in this sense. I'm not even sure why it's sensitive film because, um, you know, in a horror movie with ghosts around, kind of adds to the atmosphere possibly, unless it's completely drones out any recording, but it makes no sense either way. Like literally, it's noise that had no basis in reality at all. Or possibly I'm not sure if mm, not sure if it's got to do with maybe amplified feedback or something. I don't think so, but otherwise it would happen at all times, and it doesn't. So anyway, I'm just see if it's any better now. Hopefully, I thought checking it every once in a while was fine, but then 10 minutes went past, and they happened to be the 10 minutes that I didn't check, and most of 10 minutes where the recording is mostly muffled. That's annoying, isn't it? I don't think the microphone boost necessarily does much. tried it. Hmm. And well, in terms of this movie, yeah, if the previous 10 minutes was too muffled, by the way, it was a short history thing about whether Tyrannia really existed. That's really a Trashka, but beyond that, it's just rambling, really. Um, and yeah, rambling about the fact that they were just inventing history, it seems like, at one point at least. I mean, Tyrannia was differently spelled, but then they invented a battle, it seems. Yeah, anyway, um, I'll just, I shan't possibly repeat the whole 10 minutes, but in terms of this, yeah, there is some interesting comedy, as usual. There are these one-liners. There was one before as well that I liked in terms of one battle too many. And now it was a good joke. Didn't think Maggie Smith could do jokes. I don't know. I only know Maggie Smith as an old lady, so she's ever so slightly a different actress, I suppose. Being old, don't think I've ever heard such a raunchy joke from her before. I'm not sure though. Yeah, she just said she could, the other person could dance by lifting her legs quite high up and then wider. The way they looked at each other, you don't expect such comedy in neo noir that begins with a murder. That guess it's to be expected. So it's a similar sort of pattern to Murder on Midnight. Was it Midnight? No, Orient Express. Yeah. Um, but yeah, it's definitely strange seeing Maggie Smith 40 years ago. I am so used to the wrinkles now in her films, and I've seen her in the last one I watched was the one with the when she lives in a van. So the lady in the van, I think it's called literally. Yeah, that's quite a story. It was. It's kind of opposite here, I suppose you could say. Well, former showgirl, I guess. It's implied. Well, if I try to keep up with how many people are holding grudges and who might strike again, or so, at this point, I'm just assuming that the murder at the beginning is unrelated to any. I mean, if it's totally unrelated until the very end, then it's a stupid addition. Why would they have added it at the very beginning? Anyway, I'm just trying to see though, just trying to keep track of how many people are going to hold a grudge against this so-called former showgirl here, not Maggie Smith, the other one, her sparring partner. Because she seems to be quite skilled at making enemies. So far, it's been the guy in the sailor suit, Brewster, I think he's called, and the young girl as well. I I thought she was some sort of relation at first, though, but I have no idea what she is. She seems to have annoyed her. She wanted to play with her fiance and told her to go away, and then called her a camel. Huh. So you know, I mean, and even Maggie Smith's character dislikes her a bit. So I'm just, at this point, I suppose she's the most likely candidate for, I suppose, some sort of strike, possibly by Brewster. But these things are always done a bit more complicated than the most obvious thing. I mean, sure, in the other movie it was a bit complicated as well, but such a stupid sort of rationalization. Like I don't even know why I even bothered. Why um, why the book was even written if the whole point of it was to just brush it off. In terms of Eileen's attempts at humor, they often fail, though. So strange when this happens because I'm assuming it's the same scriptwriter for everyone else's attempts at humor as well, and just what everyone else says. I'm assuming, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I guess a script can be written by different people for different people. I suppose it often happens. But yeah, everything that Eileen says is either condescending or it's really not very funny at all. It's mostly just condescending. Um, what Poirot says at one point, what his opinion is with regards to some betas, though, is interesting. It's quite, I guess, chilling to compare them to bodies in the morgue, yeah, and I mean, I suppose the contrast is that a morgue is very cold usually. This this is this is a sunny place, but it is still strange to somebody, I guess one could say. It's also potentially harmful with regards to ultraviolet radiation. So I honestly don't know and don't think it is anything very useful, apart from maybe just a slight bit of time. I doubt though the amount of time that people spend is at all healthy. So anyway, yeah. What Poirot always has these comebacks that are interesting. The one from last time did as well, until the very end at least, when he just washed his hands. What's the point of that? We'll see if this one does that as well. Still not sure whether this is the same actor or not. Not very clear with either voices or faces. I know that they use a lot of actors over time, but I'm not sure if this one is specifically. I think it might be though. I mean, that was Hitchcock, and this wasn't it? I think. No, was it? I'm not sure now. Might be confusing it with the other Hitchcock film, also set on a train. But yeah, this is definitely a better atmosphere here. I'd much rather be on an island than a train. The train is so oppressive. Of course, after the 34th minute, yeah, there's no sun anymore and just darkness, and it's much more ominous. It looks more like a psycho house than what we had before. Alright, I know I said that everything that Arlene said wasn't funny and at best condescending, and I suppose this is still, I mean, in terms of, follows a similar pattern, but I really found this funny. When she said that bitch Daphne, um, uh, it's not exactly the most complex of logic for as far as humor goes, but in the context it's in, you know, with the relationship that they established beforehand, it it's it was funny. I mean, in terms of, I don't normally find such vocabulary funny at all, but in this specific context, it just happens to be, you know, the fact that she told her she booked the reference. Um, I guess you could have also went and peeked to see who booked who, but I suppose it's even less likely. In terms of geography, earlier I try to see whether it has any realism in its history. I mean, there was only a little history anyway, and they didn't mention it ever since. But they just mentioned Gull Cove. Now, it seems Gull Cove is near Canada, North America, so this makes no sense. It's better to not mention anything at all if you're just being random, I suppose. Kind of like, this that last movie I watched, Armor of God, didn't mention where they were from at all. But I could see some shops, and they seem to be of Eastern European origin, and it was set there, multiple countries though. It just didn't specify usually. And as with this, yeah, this makes no sense because at first they mentioned Turania, which is supposed to be a Mediterranean Sea, Tuscany. And now they mention Gold Cove, and it's in Canada. It makes no sense. It's nowhere nearby, and I'm not too familiar with Canadian islands, but I don't think it looks very much like one. I mean, it does look more like somewhere in Tuscany than or Etruscan. I think it is Etrusca than Canada. But yeah, never mind. Unless by going sketching at Gold Cove, she meant taking a helicopter there and just going on the other side of the world or something. Crossing the Atlantic in a hurry. I don't know why I'm fussing about this anyway. And Newfoundland and Labrador happens to be on the Avalon Peninsula. I was surprised the first time I heard that it's called Avalon. That's supposed to be some sort of legendary place, and yet somehow there's loads of Avalons actually in the world. Of course, they all wanted to be named after some legendary place, but then it sort of takes away from that legend, I suppose. Imagine if there were a lot of Atlantica, I guess. Well, there's an Atlantic Ocean, but that's pretty much it, I think. I seriously have no idea why they decided to just suddenly display a dead rabbit with maggots as well. Like, what? I expected out of a horror movie, and that seems to think that somehow gore is the ultimate horror, despite being the most unsubtle thing ever. But uh, yeah, unless it's going to be somehow related to some subsequent murder of some human, I suppose. I really don't understand how it's got anything to do with anything. Most bizarre thing ever, and I still have no idea what the murder at the beginning. I mean, it's this is I'm on the 50th, nearly the 50th minute now, and I have no idea why on earth the murder was reported at the beginning of the movie. It's makes no sense. There's no connection. I mean, there might be at the end, but why report it so early on and even show it? Like, so as far as I know, based on these two, they seem to think that unneeded showing of gore is somehow necessary for neo noir as well. It's the most bizarre thing, especially considering they wanted to film this in such a place, which is pleasing overall to look at, but why then end up unnecessarily zooming in on these just for the heck of it, or to prime the audience for something that happens later possibly, but it still makes no sense currently, unless the rabbit is somehow the person's pet or something, that's the only sensible reason that would be, but other than that, it's very what's the word? It's just it's unneeded at best, And yeah, it's not very difficult to see Was it that she was the one going to be murdered? I mean, inevitably someone was going to be at any rate. Just how it happened, I suppose, was strange. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be shown on camera, otherwise, the audience already knows who it is. And I mean, there are several candidates, as mentioned, and several people who were pissed off with her. Even her husband, her official husband. So at this point, could be absolutely anyone. Apart from, of course, I assume um, her, you know, boyfriend, not husband, um, who found her. So yeah, I think though, someone I had mentioned before, that is also, I mean, is also the most obvious candidate because he literally said he was going to do something. I mean, too obvious, I suppose, will be the one who wanted her to participate in some sort of uh, theater thing. Yeah. Um, I'm just hoping that this doesn't end so like the other one did, with just washing his hands because somehow the murder was justified. Like seriously, kind of murder is justified. That was such a disappointing beginning to the franchise. Really, I'm hoping that there is at least, you know, if you're going to spend the next hour trying to deduce who committed the murder, the least you could expect is not to waste an hour, right? Until at the end he just simply concludes, well, I'm not going to do much if nobody else decides to say anything about anything. I mean, what the hell is the point of that? What kind of ending is that? On average, it seems like it was liked by the audience as well, which makes little sense. Right? It's absolutely unsatisfying and it's not moral either, because no murder is justified in the end, unless it's self-defense or such, say, which this wasn't. But so yeah, uh, so it could be either the person who wanted her to be in another theater show, could be her husband who's pissed off, could be also the so-called sailor who wanted to write some sort of autobiography of her, and she did not, and so he doesn't get his money because of that. Apparently, he already began writing it, and so justifiably he's annoyed because she suddenly backed away. Could be, yeah, could even be the young girl because apparently she's the daughter of um the her boyfriend, yeah. So instead of staying with her mother, he was going out with this person who was murdered, and could be many people, I suppose. I mean, the most likely candidate is to one who was refused theater because he literally said he was going to do something. I suppose it's too obvious, assuming. Then again, I thought that her being murdered was too obvious. Yeah, then again, these Poirot ones don't seem to necessarily avoid being obvious. I mean, the other one that I watched, the person literally said that he was fearing that he might get murdered, and he was. So they don't exactly try to not murder the one who is most likely to be murdered, I suppose you could say. As I said, in terms of what happened at the beginning of this movie, I'm not entirely sure why that happened. Why was there another murder? Is it connected at all? Okay. Is that connected to the diamond on the other hand? Yeah, this is diamond. So and yeah, that's another person actually who might be a candidate for the murder because as far as I know, from my understanding, she was the one who gave him the fake diamonds. She was the one who was once going to marry him. She seems like she wants to marry everyone or something. She wanted to marry everyone, but yeah. And he had just arrived as well. There was a boat that just came. So actually, think of it, he might be even more of a candidate. He has more means to do this. Whereas the theater guy might have done it, but they have about an equal, I suppose, equal sort of reason to do it. Whether they'd have what kind of alibi they have. On the other hand, we'll see. I guess we'll see who has the most reasonable alibi. The alibis they came up with in the other movie were some of the most convoluted I've ever heard of, and yet it was all for nothing. Even when he figured out who it was, which was also the most ridiculous thing that anyone could come up with. Uh, yeah. Um, so hopefully it won't be as ridiculous as this. Um, but yeah, sure. I guess they can try to have complex alibis. Based on this, I guess I'm going to see whether going to form some sort of opinion. I mean, it's not exactly many, but I guess a couple of Poirots makes me wonder why Agatha Christie was so renowned. I mean, apparently she is one of the best-selling authors, comparable to J.K. Rowling or such. Based on Murder on the Orient Express, I was just wondering why she was. Then I guess maybe that's just one book out of many. So yeah. So in terms of the last hour here, yeah, several things that just logically stand out as being in a way it's not an uninteresting sort of thing, is it? In a way, these kind of movies are sort of an exercise in thought. Unless one already knows who did it. This is the point of what's ruined Murder on Orient Express, really. 'Cause, anyone might know, if anyone might know how it ends, it's just stupid, this is why it was, I don't know how anyone liked it, because it takes away the entire point. So hopefully this doesn't do the same thing, but in terms of what it's doing, so he's getting a lot of alibis from all sorts of people. But one logical loophole I can see is that so I mean, an alibi is fine really in real life, but what if both are lying? Somehow it doesn't seem to consider that. If you have two people giving an alibi for each other, well, they could easily lie, couldn't they? About each other. They could be conspirators. I mean, I'm assuming that is considered in real life, but it's not considered in this movie, at least. It's normally considered in um, most of these novels, but will be a glaring omission. Another thing, so uh, yeah, why didn't he question what was it called? The one with the constant fancy hat and constant wry smile. What were they called again? Uh, let's see. It's difficult to come up with all these names. Barbaric, anything. Yeah, the one I thought was a candidate for her murder, the one who wanted her to participate in theater one more time, but she didn't want to. He says he doesn't have an alibi, but of course, if he wanted, he could have conspired with what presumed to be his wife, and she's the one that poured in the question for some reason. She's just sitting there and looking at him. I don't get it. Also, her husband says that his wife does have an alibi. So, as far as that goes, as long in relation to what was depicted earlier in the film, the wife does. I mean, they do seem to say that the truth, I suppose, based on exactly what was shown, at least. If they wanted to, they could have lied and given each other alibis, and he apparently wouldn't have questioned it based on, the other couple who were together on the beach, giving each other alibis and not questioning it. I think he could easily do that. Still didn't get the name, yeah. But yeah, it's pretty obvious what I'm talking about. Huh? Yeah, he just says he was waiting. That's a problem, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's either this or the guy from the boat is ridiculous. He says his alibi is his entire ship. How could an entire ship be an alibi? A ship from far away? Maybe he locked them all in cabins until simply conspired with them. I mean, if he pays them, then can you even get an alibi from someone you pay? Isn't that bribery? Oh, anyway, yeah. Let's see how this ends. Another thing, what is that I don't know why the one that was catching the painting uh, told him that she knew it was 12 because the gun went off when she asked, and it was shown. And later on, Linda said that she asked her what the time is. What's the point of that? Such a minor detail. Alright, so I finished it, and clearly I'm no natural detective. I mean, it was a bit far-fetched, and again, not as much as obviously as uh, the ending officially isn't as stupid as Murder on the Orient Express. Uh, but I couldn't figure it out. Yes, it's funny. They accuse him of thinking of crimes of passion. That everything is a crime of passion because he's a Belgian, and always they keep thinking French, Then it wasn't. Yeah, it's I don't know. It was fairly far-fetched. I don't know if they're all similarly far-fetched or of Christie's novels. The fact that there was all this charade and all this acting within acting was a bit much. I gotta say. I mean, yeah, you can only assume so much, but well, yes. In this case, it was sort of like it's sort of two conspired to give each other alibis, but one deceived ever so slightly the other to give the alibi. And, yeah, I don't know. It's a strange one. These are all very strange generally. At least it didn't feel useless like the other Poirot was, where it just felt so useless. Yeah, and to say the least, of course, the cinematography was pretty cool. Because you know, but it was set. I mean, much better than a train, much more claustrophobic than a train, and it was set off the coast of Mallorca apparently, which is near Spain. Dragonera. It's uninhabited apparently. Hmm. If it's uninhabited, how does it have a house?